First of all, for the people in the back, if you're not going to try to escape later, which I totally think if you want to, you should, but if you would be willing to come forward a little bit, just to make it so, because we're actually going to do some stuff, there's going to be some interactive elements here, and it's going to be easier for you to access other people to throw pieces of paper at. If we're closer. So thank you, I appreciate that. I'll start the intro, but actually after I do the intro, I'm curious to see why you came to the session and what you want to get out of it. Before I get into that part, let's talk about, let's make it about me for a moment. So in case you're curious and you're like, I have no idea why she's here, I'm an international keynote speaker now. I've spoken in about 23 countries all over the world and companies like Facebook and Google. I have written 2 books. One of them, actually, in my former life, I was a front-end developer, and I wrote a book called The CSS Detective Guide about the graceful degradation of CSS3, which I know dates me, because that was like 10,000 years ago when anybody was even paying attention to that kind of thing, and now you don't have to. But I also wrote a book called Banish Your Inner Critic. So I talk a lot about creativity and the inner critic and how people can do creative collaboration and also how people can lead better, which is why we're here today. Also, I'm a LinkedIn Learning course author. So if you use LinkedIn Learning, formerly Linda, and is it me or does this sound strange? Is it me? It sounds strange. It's kind of tinny and very echoey. No? No? Okay. Maybe it's just...
Yeah, from here it's okay.
Oh, from here it's okay? Okay. Well, then it's just for me. It's my special gift. So if you're a LinkedIn Learning course user, I have like 7 courses on there, and I personally like them. You might want to go and check them out. And then finally, not finally, but I also founded a company called The Creative Dose, where I do creative consulting for other enterprise companies. And finally, the part that I personally find exciting right now is that I'm a very, very passionate gardener and gardening designer, and that is a picture of my front yard. So, if anybody else is into gardening, come and talk to me afterwards and we'll geek out and I will regale you with pictures of broccoli. Now that we've done that, before I get started, I'm really actually curious as to why you wanted to come to the session and what you would actually hope to get out of it. Does anybody want to share? Otherwise, I'll call on you. Everybody's like, I am scared to death. This woman is terrifying. Thank you very much. This is a good image. So he says this image actually expresses his feeling about collaboration. Anybody else? How often do you have to collaborate in your job? Every day. How many instances have you had where people actually teach you good collaboration skills? Like practically none, right? Okay, so you're in the right place. So let's talk about collaboration. Most people, when you think about collaboration, this imagery comes to mind, like, oh my God, it's not gonna be fun. And when you go to meetings and you go to brainstorming meetings, are they usually very interesting, or you're just like, oh my God, another brainstorming meeting, and I wish we could just do this. This is basically what you end up feeling like. Do people share their ideas? Do people feel free to, have this like great, creative exchange? Or is it a situation where there's 1 or 2 people who are always the people who are talking, who are always the people who are lending the ideas, and then instead of a brainstorming meeting where everybody's kind of been able to weigh in and you've got like a whole kind of combination of ideas to work with and combine and come up with something stronger with, it's instead the loudest ideas, not necessarily the best ideas. Has anybody had this experience? Am I okay, good. I'm glad I'm not like off the thing. Not only that, but first of all, what are people's breakdowns in terms of like what they're doing? How many developers, like straight up developers? Yeah? Any product managers or product owners? No? For the people who weren't developers, what are you doing? What do you do? Architecture. Anything else aside from architecture? So developers and architecture, but you know that as developers and software architectures and whatnot, you have to work with other people in the company. And what ends up happening is they work on something and they toss it over the wall to you, or you work on something and you toss it over the wall to somebody else. And there's this kind of lack of communication with each other, and then it runs into what? Problems, right? Things don't get built properly, things don't get built correctly, projects take a long time or maybe longer than they should. Am I close? Am I hitting the mark a little bit? Yeah, okay, so this sounds familiar. But what if you had these kind of great diverse teams where like everybody was actually able to share something, and instead of it being the loudest idea as opposed to the best, like everybody's kind of brilliance was able to come to bear and people were able to shine? And what if you had a team where people felt free to share their ideas and felt comfortable, and then you actually really had this great basically collaboration, and you had this great sharing of ideas? And what if, because of that, you had a company that was, well, first of all, your team was be able to really produce really good products, but then your company would be able to produce really great products and like not just meet the expectations of your clients, but actually exceed the expectations of your clients and have it be a very profitable endeavor overall. So the nice thing is that we have this ability and we have this power, and a lot of it lies with creative collaboration, and so we are going to talk about that today. By the way, again, because it's such a small group or anything, if anybody has any questions, if anybody has anything to say or anything, absolutely feel free to stop me and ask a question. I am so open to it, and I think we'll also learn a lot from other people's experiences. So, first of all, let's just talk about creativity just for a moment. So, I think, especially kind of over the past several years, it's been really cool that, like, for example, at a conference like this, that there is a talk or maybe even multiple talks on creativity. I think it's really neat that people are actually recognizing how important a skill it is and how important an element it is in not just something that marketers or designers or whatever do, but that what everybody does. Here's a question for you. How many of y'all consider yourself to be creative? Yeah? For the people, and for the people who don't consider yourself creative, is it because you feel like you're analytical instead of being creative? Is that kind of actually? So here's what I personally find interesting and what I actually find to be true is that developers and people who are analytical in a lot of ways are some of the most creative people. I mean, if you think about it, if somebody says, okay, I want you to build me an app that does this, 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 and this, and you sit there and you go, okay, yeah, I can do that. And you've already started thinking about which language you're going to use. You've already started figuring out what platform you're going to use. You've already started thinking about what, backend. You've thought about all these things, and you already have visualized how you're going to create this thing that somebody literally just said, I have this idea, can you build it? And you're like, yeah, I can. Tell me that's not creative. Sorry, I'm shouting. I'm excited. You can tell. Tell me that's not, that is super, that is like the epitome of creative. So are you a fantastic drawer? Are you like Michelangelo? No. Do you compose music? No. Are you dancing? No. But you're creative in this like incredibly special and powerful way. Just to give you a little bit more background about like how creativity has kind of come to the fore over the past few years. So IBM did a study where they asked people what is one of the most important skills that a leader should have. Creativity was actually 60% was the highest skill that they thought that leaders should have. Cool. Time magazine, and so I want to apologize ahead of time that all of these polls and surveys and stuff are very American oriented. I apologize. I'll try harder to find global sources, but this is what I got. So Time magazine did a poll in 2013, asked people, what quality do you want your coworkers to have? And thankfully, over beauty, because that would be like really shallow, but also over human and even over intelligence. Creativity was the highest. 94% people said, I want to work with other people who are creative. That's what I really value. And then I'm a LinkedIn Learning author, so I actually pay attention to this kind of thing. But for LinkedIn Learning, they do, like every year, they do a survey of which courses are the most popular, which means which skills are in demand. And really cool, you can't see it, it's very tiny on the top, but the top 5 soft skills, creativity, and the third one is collaboration. What? So that is why I'm here for you today. So, in order to get to this point of being able to collaborate creatively, I am going to talk about 4 ways, 4 things that we can do. First, to unblock, to connect, to combine, and to play. Oh, and by the way, just as a little aside, we're not going to just talk about this, we're actually going to practice these things. So I've got situations where we're going to get a chance to practice, and it's going to be cool. So let's talk about unblock. Okay, before I go any further, any questions? Good? Keep going. All right, I'll keep going. So the creative process, great. So the Doubly Design Office, I believe, actually is based here in London. But love this quote, that the creative process involves many conversations. Conversations with co-creators and colleagues, yes, but more importantly, and to start with, conversations with oneself. So I have a question for you. What blocks individual and creative collectivity the most? What do you think? Yeah, hit me.
Lack of psychological safety within the team.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what can you distill that down into?
Not feeling comfortable.
Yes, and what did I hear over here? Yes, what? Exactly, fears, which not feeling comfortable can be distilled down in fears. So fears. So several fears come up when talking about creative collaboration. The fear of not measuring up to others. So a lot of times people compare themselves to others. Have you ever heard somebody say, or maybe even potentially thought to yourself, you don't have to out yourself, but you can say, like, my colleagues are so talented. I work with this really talented group of people, or this really smart group of people, or these really great, super smart, like, very seasoned developers, right? Like, I can't measure up to that somehow. Right? Then we have fear of being judged and criticized. I did a speaking skills workshop this morning, and we do this exercise, which we're going to do later in just a little bit. And I have things over there. I might actually need a lovely assistant in a moment. But one of the things that came up is people are saying, if I say something, it's going to be stupid. Like, people might think it's stupid. People are going to judge me. People are going to think unfavorably of me, and they'll think I'm dumb if I say the wrong thing, right? Fear of not being perfect and making mistakes, a very real thing. Also, fear of not being enough, somehow lacking in some way. And then there's also the fear of maybe potentially being too out there and too forward-thinking and too visionary, and nobody's going to get it. They're just going to think you're crazy, right? So these are all come from the inner critic, okay? And again, I wrote a book on it. You can go and check it out. But let's do this, if you all will indulge me so much. Let's do a little thing. Okay, I'm gonna have to try to stay away from the speaker because we don't want feedback. I'm gonna have to stay away from that too. So everybody's gonna get a piece of paper and a pen. I'm gonna give this, so get this, take it around. Oh, look, he's gonna help. Okay, cool. And then take a piece of paper and pass it on. Take a piece of paper and pass it on. Take a piece of paper and pass it on. Pass it on, pass it on. Take a piece of paper and pass it on. Here we go. Alexander's got one, everybody. Everybody, if you have more, we got papers over there. Everybody get a piece of paper over there. Everybody got a pen? Okay, cool. So I didn't even need that much paper. Did you get paper? Here you go, sir. All right, this is what I want y'all to do. Oop, I gotta get away from the speakers. And I'm just gonna stand down here because I can. So this is what I want you to do. On your piece of paper, I want you to write down your top fear around collaborating. So you're collaborating with people. Maybe your fear is like, I'm just not as smart as my colleagues. Maybe your fear is, I have these ideas, they're nuts, they're too out there. Maybe your fear is people aren't gonna wanna listen to me. Maybe your fear is people are gonna laugh at. I don't know what your fear is. You just have one. This is not a dissertation. Don't write your name on it. Nobody knows what your handwriting looks like. Just write it, and when you're done writing it, I want you to take the ball, crumple it up in a piece of paper, and when you've got it, I want you to hold it loud and proud over your head, okay? And if you would be so kind as to not leave the paper blank, I would really appreciate it. You're like, I'm gonna trick her. No, I've done this a couple of times. Okay, you got your thing, you got your paper? All right, once everybody's done, yeah, we got that. We have one more person. She's writing, she's thinking about it, and we're walking. All right, stand up. This side of the room turns this way, so you guys face each other, and on the count of 3, we're gonna throw it. Now, I said on the count of 3. They're like, my ideas are too out there. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Now, get a ball. Have a ball, grab a ball. If the balls are unevenly distributed, make sure everybody gets one. And then I actually love this part because I love to hear, he's got a couple, he's got a pair. Who needs a ball? Who didn't get one? There we go. Okay, great. You know what? You got an extra? Anybody got an extra one? So we got some ones underneath the chair? Okay, so, we need an extra one over here. Da-da-da, nice. I get to be part of this process. All right, open it up and take a look. And I wanna hear what some people wrote. What do we got?
Being misunderstood.
Being misunderstood, great. What else have we got? Can you read it?
Not being seen just as a colleague.
Not being seen just as a colleague. Okay, what else we got?
Fear of being wrong.
Fear of being wrong, huge one. What we got?
Inconveniencing others when asking for help.
Inconveniencing others. Oh, I want to give a hug. What we got?
Others don't always want to collaborate.
Ooh, somebody said it. What do you got?
That they don't get it.
They don't get it. What we got?
People think I'm out of my depth.
Okay, all right. What do you got?
Suggestions that end up highlighting my inexperience.
Okay, what we got? Not being understood. So we got like a couple of those. Anybody else want to share?
Fear of conflict.
Fear of conflict. Oh, those are juicy ones though, but they're very real. Here's the thing. Did anybody get a blank one? Do we have to hit anybody with a wet noodle? Okay, good. So everybody's got fears. Everybody's got some fears, and everybody brings those fears to the table. Thank you very much for participating. Everybody brings those fears to the table when you have, so you think you're going to a brainstorming meeting, and then you're like, why can't we, how did I switch that? That's crazy. Whoa, that's nuts. I've never had that happen. I can't even believe it. I literally slid my hand on the keyboard and it swapped displays for me, which is not what it's supposed to do at all. You gotta love technical stuff. Hold please for a moment, everyone, while I resolve this, because we were doing beautifully before. There we go. Let me pull this little sucker down. I don't know why I decided to do that. Why did you decide to do that? That's nuts. I have to tell you, I have been speaking for 14 years now. I have never had this happen, ever. So this is pretty crazy. Let's see what happens when we do this. Nope. I apologize, y'all. I was like totally in the groove here. I might have to mirror the displays. I literally don't know why it did that.
You can swap this. There we go.
Oh, is that? So I literally did do that.
I need to go to that screen there.
That's what I hit. All right, thank you. Again, 14 years, never had this happen. Okay, cool. I did. I took it off, but okay, perfect. Yay, but I don't want to go to the end. This is awesome. Oh, and I swapped actual presentations. So this is actually a good lesson learned. Like, don't have two presentations up at the same time. So we're talking about what came up. All of those things came up. This is some of my responses to some of the things that I supposed would come up, and this kind of did come up. Like, I'm not as smart, talented, this whole comparison thing, and then it needs to be perfect. So basically, I don't want to say something that's stupid. People are going to think it's too out there. People aren't going to get it. I heard people aren't going to get it, that kind of thing. So in response to those two things, one of the things that I think is really important to keep in mind is what happens when we have those thoughts. Like I said, you go into these meetings, you think it's just going to be like a regular brainstorming meeting, not realizing that everybody's coming with like a little carry-on bag of issues that's going to stand in the way of all of y'all coming up with some good solutions together. So one of the things I think is important to remember is that when you come into something like that, you end up doing something called self-censoring, right? And that means that you hold back your ideas. There's actually a term for it. It's called ideacide. And yeah, right? And so it means that you're basically killing your ideas before they even have a chance to sprout and before they have a chance to see the light of day, because you're being so self-critical that you're basically self-editing before that happens. So a couple of things. When you're comparing yourself with other people, I think one thing that's really important to know is that you can't compare your insides to somebody's outsides. So somebody may appear as if they're confident, but you have no idea what's going on inside of them, right? So if you're like, I'm just not as confident, whatever, you don't actually know if they're actually confident or they're just kind of feigning confidence. And it's not fair to judge yourself against what you see on the outside of people, number one. Number two, when you're coming and you do have ideas, one of the things, it is actually one of my favorite slides, thank you so much for smiling. One of the things I think is really, really good to know is to like, your perspective is very unique. And your perspective, because it's unique, is very valuable. And the more you have people with different perspectives, the more you're going to be able to come up with a better solution, right? So knowing your uniqueness advantage, knowing where your ideas are slightly different or whatever, you don't have to have everybody coming with the same thing. It's really important to know this aspect of you. What is it, the thing that you bring to bear that nobody else has? What are the unique perspectives that you've had based on your experience, based on your knowledge base, based on anything else, right? Based on the things that you actually go and pursue outside of work, right? These things actually all help inform and help it so that you're bringing something that nobody else is going to bring. And those things are actually really important, especially when it comes to collaboration. And then another thing about trying to be perfect, one thing I like to tell people is that there's a difference between being excellent, being really good at something and doing something really well and thoughtfully, and being perfect, i.e. not making any mistakes. So sometimes when you come into something, instead of being so concerned that it's perfect, that it doesn't have any flaws, try to just make it as good as you can. Make it really good, right? That kind of thing also will help kind of have a better pool of information to pull from. Love this quote of don't let perfect become the enemy of good. So here, those are some things that you can use to kind of get rid of the blocks, the mental blocks that are in yourself so that you can come and you can bring a better version of yourself to the table. Now let's talk about not just doing that, but actually then connecting with other people. Yeah? Okay, any questions, by the way? No? Okay, I'll keep going. So I love this quote, this author Bruce Nussbaum, who wrote a book called Creative Intelligence. And I love the way he says that creativity is social and that you need these small teams of people who trust each other, are familiar with each other, and who can play together. So you were saying you have to have that kind of feeling of trust, right? That kind of feeling of psychological safety. When you connect with people, you can start to build that. So let's talk about it. The first thing, communication. Crucial, super important. If you're not actually communicating clearly or actually listening clearly, then it's not going to go over well. It's going to go over like a lead balloon. So one of the things I think is important to remember, again, keeping ideas to yourself is detrimental. It's the sharing of ideas that really gets things to start to flow and to start to move and to start to blossom. So does anybody remember the movie Lucy? No? Oh, y'all got to go and see the movie Lucy. Yes, okay, he remembers it. Okay, like homework. And by the way, it's got Scarlett Johansson in it, so it's not like, it's going to be like a difficult movie to watch, but it's a science fiction movie. This woman, Lucy, ends up ingesting a drug that helps her to access her full brain capacity, which, you've heard the thing that says that we're only accessing about 10% of our intellectual and brain capacity. She's able to access the whole thing. And as the movie goes, she evolves and she evolves and she evolves. There's one scientist in the movie who might be played by, no, it's Morgan Freeman. I was going to say Samuel Jackson, played by Morgan Freeman. And one of the things that he says is, look, when cells are in an environment where they are feeling like they're in a hostile environment, they will self-preserve by just keeping to themselves. But when cells are in an environment where they feel like they can flourish, they will replicate. And they will actually replicate to share their DNA, to essentially share their knowledge, right? And so the question is, are you going to self-preserve, keep all your information to yourself, or are you going to share knowledge? Are you going to replicate these things that you know so they can go out in the world and become something even better? So my recommendation, be generous with your ideas. Share your ideas, even if it feels a little shaky. Maybe start off with small bits of things. Hey, you know what I was thinking? I was thinking so-and-so. Hey, I went to NDC conference and I heard this talk and it was really cool. Maybe this is something that we can start to play with, right? Share your ideas, very important. And there is, however, a flip side to sharing your ideas. So what often happens is there are people, like I said at the beginning, there are people who are up there saying stuff all the time, and they're loud, and everybody listens to them because they're loud and they're talking all the time. These people are often not the people who are listening. So it's really, really important to listen, because and I don't get the impression from any of y'all that you're any of these people, but if you are an over-enthusiastic sharer of ideas, then that means that it's taking away the opportunity for somebody else to share their ideas. You want to give people space to feel comfortable, to have that safety so that they will share their ideas. Here are some points, some pointers for being an adept, what I like to call an adept listener. So the first one is to be very present. Have you ever been in a conversation with somebody, like actually, when you've been at this, sorry, I'm so excited that I'm like tripping over my words, but you ever been in a conversation with somebody and you get the sense that they're not listening to you entirely because they're trying to formulate what they're saying next? Give somebody the gift of being fully present. And then that also means then give somebody the gift of relaxing your own agenda. Sometimes it's like, because of our own anxieties and insecurities, we want to like appear clever or we want to like, jump in. But sometimes when you just listen, you get so much more than when you're trying to plan what you're gonna say next, yeah? Pay a close attention, listen to those details, listen to that something that you can take and that you can potentially use for later. Here is an exercise that I would like for us to do if you all are willing. Just say yes, just go with it. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. I need you to partner up with somebody. So stand back up. That you guys are like, oh, I thought I was just gonna sit and stand, it's the end of the day, but this is actually a really fun exercise. So find a partner somewhere, don't be shy. If anybody looks like they're missing a partner, provide them partnership. Okay, this is what we're gonna do. The first round of this, I want you to think of something you're really interested in. Like, it could be that, the food here is really good at the conference, which, by the way, it is. But something you're very interested in. And I'm gonna have you guys tell each other what you're interested in, and then I'm gonna call time. But what you're gonna do is you're going to tell each other what you're interested in at the exact same time with a lot of enthusiasm and like waving of hands, okay? So, where's your partner? Where's your person? Okay, you're gonna be in a triad? Okay, cool. So on 3, you're gonna go, I'm gonna call it after a little bit because it's a little nerve-wracking, but on 3, you're gonna go, whatever you're interested in, but like with a lot of enthusiasm and gestures, okay? Ready? 1, 2, 3. Same time. Keep talking, but at the same time, exact same time. Okay, stop. Now, could you hear what the other person was saying? For the most part. Unless you did what happens sometimes where somebody just is like, I can't even do this, I'm just gonna listen to what the other person says, right? Okay, let's try it again. But this time, one person is the person who's sharing, and the other person who's the listener. Listener, what I want you to do for the person who's sharing is to really listen and like really agree, like everything that they say, just like, yeah, really? Oh, what else? What else? What else? And just really draw out what they're talking about, okay? Just take turns. Go ahead, start. Okay, if you would be so kind as to switch, so the person who was telling, switch, and the other person listens. Go ahead. Okay, time. Now tell me, what was the first experience like versus the second one? The first one's chaotic. What else? Loud.
I learned a lot.
Yeah. And then what was the second experience like? More peaceful, pleasurable, interesting. What else?
The person who was speaking wanted to share more.
Right, it encouraged the other person to share more. Yes, thank you very much. You can take your seats. So, when you're in a meeting or when you're in a brainstorming session, remember this exercise. Remember what it feels like, first of all, to be heard. Remember also what it feels like to actually listen to somebody and give your attention, and then what that experience is like for the other person. Yeah? I feel like we all want to be treated with a certain amount of respect. And when we do that for other people, there's a better chance of us getting it back. So that's connecting. Let's talk about combining. Before I start, any questions? Yes. Yay. Yes.
With the advent of working from home, it's much more difficult to listen and talk if everyone's online. You don't have that presence in front of you. Have you got any tips on how to combat that?
Yeah, I do. So I think one thing that has been helpful, I mean, definitely, over the last 3 or 4 years, we've learned a lot more about online interaction. I think one thing that sometimes helps is to have kind of one person who is leading the meeting or like running the meeting, or who's the kind of the facilitator, so that that person can actually kind of manage the call or manage the session a little bit better, so that people actually do have an opportunity to speak up. The other thing too that really helps, not just online but in person, is if people have the opportunity to kind of think of what they're going to say beforehand. How many of y'all, I'll just say it for me, first of all, I realized during the pandemic that I'm way more of an introvert than I ever imagined that I was. I was like, I'm like 60% extrovert and 40%, or like 40% extrovert, but like it depends on the day. No, man, I found out I'm more like 80-20. Like 80% introvert and like 15, like it's small, right? You think that I get up here and I talk and blah, blah. No. I like my downtime. So one thing that I've read and done with the research that I've done is when you're dealing with people who like are more introverted, it's really helpful to give people the opportunity to like come up with their ideas, like go not have to deal with a lot of people ahead of time, come up with the ideas first, and then come and share the ideas, rather than say, what's your idea? And you're like, I don't know, I don't think that way, right? I need time to process, I need time to think. So maybe even to build in, like during these times, like, hey, we've built in like 5 minutes or, 3 minutes or whatever. Everybody can turn their cameras off. You can sit, you can think, and then come back with something. And then even also to encourage people to share things through the chat. So maybe they don't want to talk, but maybe that they're sharing ideas through the chat, and then that feels a little less kind of anxiety provoking for them. Does that help? Okay. Great. Any other questions?
The opposite, the loudspeaker, they are useful because they start things, the conversation going, but how do you calm them?
I would say that to acknowledge that they're like, oh, so-and-so, that's so helpful that you're starting the conversation. Like that's really useful. I'm really interested in hearing what so-and-so has to say. Like, that's so great, thank you so much. And what does so-and-so like? What are they like? Oh, we had this conversation. Like, how many times have you had a conversation with somebody outside of a meeting and they say something absolutely brilliant, and then you're like, you should say that in the meeting. And then during the time in the meeting where they could say something, they don't say anything, and you're like, want to kick them under the table, like, what about that thing you said, right? So you could say something like, hey, I was talking to so-and-so and we were talking about this, and maybe introduce the idea and then say, I don't remember all the details. So-and-so, what else were you saying? So maybe to try to draw other people out that may be hesitant to share initially. Yeah? Okay, so combining ideas. So creativity thrives on diversity, tension, sharing, and collaboration. Of course, we're talking about collaboration. Now, this is actually really cool because there have actually been studies that show that creativity is not just something that works on a linear line, but that it's something called, it's superlinear, and it has superlinear scaling. So basically, the more people you have together, the more opportunities you have for creativity. But it isn't like this exponential growth. It's like superlinear. So we'll say, for example, if you have like twice as many people, instead of having twice as many, the opportunity for twice as many ideas, you have the opportunity for 10 times the number of ideas. It's pretty nuts. And so I think I put this up just so you would actually like have superlinear emblazoned in your mind. That when you have kind of more people like, adding to the pot, that your creative ideas and your ideas can like really actually ramp up pretty large in a large way, more so than when you would think. And this is a great quote, that none of us is as smart as all of us. And I love that because no one person has got all the information. It's the collective that really does it. So to keep in mind with that, a diversity of people means a diversity of ideas, a diversity of backgrounds, a diversity of experiences, a diversity of ways of thinking. A lot of time, like now, there's a lot of talk about people being neurodivergent, or as the term I like to hear is neurospicy, which gives a whole different flavor to it, right? And so a lot of times people are like, oh, I discovered, I didn't even realize that I had ADHD. But it's like, yeah, but like there's so much value in that, because then that means that the way you think and the way you process information and everything is like slightly spicy, and can really actually help. You can come up with some really good solutions that way. And also to think about like the difference between, kind of left brain and right brain, or the analytical and the creative, or introverts and extroverts, big picture thinkers and analytical thinkers, generators and synthesizers. Any way you want to kind of think about it, all of those different things, you need all of that to really come up with some good stuff. And then everybody's piece is important, and it ends up kind of fitting together like puzzle pieces, and I love that. One of the easiest ways to get to that is by using improv techniques. I'm not talking about doing a comedy sketch. I'm talking about using techniques that they use in improv, because what it ends up doing is it helps to amplify the ideas of other people. And I don't know if you've ever heard this term, but there's a term called plussing. Have you guys heard the term plussing? Look at you, like learning some new stuff at this talk, where there are like, 15 people in here. Awesome. But plussing is actually a technique that they used a lot at Walt Disney and like Pixar and stuff like that. And that's to take whatever somebody says and to add to it. So how many times have you been in a meeting where somebody comes with an idea? First of all, they had to dredge up the courage to actually even say something. It may have been you. I know I've been in these situations. You say something, and then somebody says, what? The big wet blanket. What does somebody say?
Yes, but.
Yes, but. What else do they say? What are some?
Anyway.
What?
Anyway.
Anyway, right? Which is like, you're just like, wow, what a snub. What about, we tried that and it didn't work? That'll never work. Yes, but, etc. All these things. But when you do plussing, instead of somebody immediately coming and like shooting down an idea, whatever idea you start with, that's what you work with. Inside of your head, you may be thinking, that's actually not the best idea that I've heard, but it doesn't matter, because it's really just a foundational thing. It's really just a springboard. So start where you are. And then in improv, and I actually studied improv, they call it accepting the offer. Whatever it is that the person said, that's the offer. You accept the offer. You say, okay, this is what we got. Let's see what we can do. Then you want to fully commit. You don't want to just like have some kind of half-assed response to it. Like really think about what they said and see what you can do to add on to it, to plus it, to improve it. And then you want to make your colleagues look good. You want to make the other person who made the offer, who came up with the original idea, they're like, that's a great idea. And you know what else we could do? We could do this. Did you tell them it was a bad idea? No. Did you suggest something that now somebody else can work with? Yes. So, like you said, yes, but is never the response. The proper response is yes, and. Now, you may be saying, I feel like I'm going to do a comedy sketch, but you're not. All you're doing is saying whatever somebody says, say yes, and something else, and then you up-level it. Guess what? We got to practice. You're like, more practicing? Yes, more practicing. Okay, so let's pair up again. This is great. Stand up. This is like the end of the afternoon. I know you wanted to chill, but you're not going to get to chill. Find a different person. Find a different person. Let's just mix this up a little bit. Find a different person. Okay, while you're finding your different person, I'm going to give you the setup. So the setup is, after the conference, y'all are going to go, let's just imagine, you're going to go and have a picnic, because of course this is perfect picnic weather, right? You're going to go and have a picnic. So you're planning the picnic. The first round of this, when you're planning, every response is going to be no. This is not going to last very long. I just want to let you know, right? So I'm going to give you a few seconds, and whatever response. So I was thinking we could go to Big Ben, and we could just have a picnic under Big Ben. What do you think? Well, we could go. I know what we could do. We could go to Piccadilly Square, and that's where we could go. What do you think of that? Okay, so I'm gonna give you just a few seconds, and then we'll do the next thing. Go ahead, start. Okay, I'm going to take you out of your misery. Because it's painful, right? Every single thing you say, no. And you're just like, seriously? I don't even want to say anything more because I know it's going to be no. What a bore. Okay, let's try it again. But let's try it with yes, but. So keep planning. You're planning, but the responses are yes, but. And then give an excuse of why that's not going to work. Yes, but. Okay, I'm going to take you out of your misery one more time. This last one, now let's you're like, oh, thank God we can say yes and so with your and, add on to what the person said, but make it fantastic. Like, it doesn't have to be based in reality at all. If you end up having a picnic on the moon with like unicorns and sparkles, that's cool with me. Like, so yes and, but like add to what they say. Like really like add something, give it some more flavor, and then the next person, you try to one-up them and just keep going. Ready? Go. All right, y'all. Okay. How's the picnic planning going now? Anybody end up on the moon yet? No? What did you say? A picnic would be very fun. But so, the difference, you could actually viscerally feel the difference between somebody saying no to everything, somebody saying yes but to everything, and somebody saying yes and, huh? Yeah? Yeah. So, again, keep this in mind. Not necessarily everybody, you can go ahead and find your seats again. Not necessarily everybody needs to be on board, but if you're the person who kind of keeps pulling people into this, people, I think in some ways, you could do a number of things. You could just kind of like surreptitiously, like, underneath the radar, try to like guide people into this. You could also make it explicit and say, hey, can we just try this? Like, let's just try this. For this meeting, let's just see what kind of differences we have when we have this approach. If everybody just says yes and to everything, let's see how it goes, right? And just see, and you could even be so bold as to do this exercise so that everybody can feel what it's like to just have no all the time and yes but all the time. And then the relief that you almost feel when you can actually say yes and you can move things forward. Yeah? Okay. The other thing that is good to keep in mind is that a lot of times people are like, well, what if the idea is, like, what if it's a bad idea, or what if it's a stupid idea? So sometimes stupid ideas, so-called, quote unquote, can be the best ideas. A lot of the things that we use all the time were kind of stupid ideas. Like, I don't know, first of all, again, I'm dating myself. I've been like in the tech industry for what feels like 1 trillion years now. But does anybody remember or has seen like pictures like of what the Twitter homepage looked like when they first started? I encourage you all to go and look it up. It's hilarious. It's like green, like melting, like text, and like Twitter, they didn't even know what they were doing when they built it. They were like, I think we could do this. And then they like put it up, and then it evolved into something else. But frankly, Twitter, when it started, was kind of a stupid idea. But then it ended up turning into something that was useful until, other things happened. So when you have the stupid idea, sometimes those are the best things. Now, I want to be respectful of time because I want to be respectful of time. I wanted to do an exercise. I don't necessarily know if we have I think we can get away with it. Let's see. More paper, more pens. There's some paper over here. Pass some pieces of paper around. When you get your piece of paper, and if we need more, I have some here too. When you get your piece of paper, take it and fold it in half like this, like a book. You got your pens? Okay. So on the inside, actually, I really like this exercise. On the inside, on the left-hand side, what I want you to do is I want you to think of a superhero. Oh, did anybody see Deadpool? Yeah? No? Hasn't seen Deadpool? Why am I the only superhero liker in here? But Alexander said he said it. Okay, so in Deadpool, there's a really funny scene, actually the second Deadpool, where he has tryouts for people to join his superhero team. And so all these people are coming, and they're like totally worthless superheroes. What I want you to do is I want you to think of a failed superhero, a superhero who did not make it into the Avengers, a superhero who did not make it into the Justice League, like a failed superhero, like Captain Purple Chair, whatever, like Miss Lanyard, like whatever it is, like a failed superhero who has like very suspect superpowers, whatever. Just a title, just come up with the title here, and when you're done, just fold the paper up and I'll tell you what to do next. A failed one, don't overthink it. Captain Carrot, like do not overthink it. This is a failed superhero, one who is just not gonna make the cut. They tried.
Do you want a description of the powers?
No, just a name. That's all we need. Super easy. Okay, when you've got your thing, fold it in half, and then I want you to just pass your paper around until I say stop. Okay, go ahead, pass the papers. Pass the papers. Pass the papers. Pass the papers. Pass, 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 pass. Like, I don't want you to end up with your paper. Make sure you pass papers and you pass them around. Keep passing the papers. Pass, 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 and stop. Okay, cool. You got another piece of paper? Now, whoever you have on your inside paper, whatever superhero you have on the inside, on the other side, I want you to write who their sidekick is. Who is their natural sidekick? We're coming soon. Don't worry. Hey, Roman. Who's their sidekick? So if you had Captain Purple Chair, maybe you have, and Black Tape Boy. An AV guy. And Roman, the AV guy. And then I want to hear what you got, because it's probably going to be really funny. What you got?
The first one was Miss Planet.
Miss Planet.
Yeah. And then the second one is Mr. Uranus.
Miss Planet and Mr. Uranus. I love it. A classic. A duo made in heaven, or in the heavens, as it were. What else? What else you guys got? What you got?
I got corporate synergy man.
Who?
Corporate synergy man.
Okay.
And the sidekick is the big bird guy.
Okay.
Who is a big bird?
I love it. What do we got over here? Don't be shy.
I've got Lion Man and Cubby Cub.
Cubby Cub. I love it. Lion Man and Cubby Cub. What else we got? He's like he's still formulating his. What do you got?
Baby bat and raging raven.
Say the first one again.
Baby bat.
Baby Bat and Raging Raven. Raging Raven. A very angry raven. What do you got back here? Yeah.
I've got Jonga and Superboy.
Awesome. So, I love this exercise because what ends up happening a lot of times is you get something that's really ridiculous, right? You get something that's really ridiculous, and there's no way that whoever you put down first, as the first superhero, there's no way that you would know what the next person's going to put down as the sidekick. But the sidekicks still work with the superhero. So even if you start with a bad idea, you can still end up with something overall that's great. So the last one that I wanted to talk about was playing. I've run out of time because we talked a lot about other things, but let's just say for the end that playing is how we invent and we experiment. So remember to also have fun with this, right? Like this is supposed to be, creative collaboration is supposed to be an enjoyable process. We're not gonna do this last exercise. Oh, the mashup one's really cool. But just remember, you've got these kind of, some of the tools at least to, have some better interactions. I actually think in some ways, the most powerful one is the one that is the yes and. And I hope you all take that with you to your teams and your meetings and everything. All of this stuff kind of overall ends up building trust, ends up creating this kind of sense of psychological safety, and it's also fun. So just to kind of end up, like all of this gets us to a place where we're now being able to co-create. And we've had the experience of trying to do it ourselves, right? Trying to do all the kind of mental heavy lifting, thinking that there was all this pressure to come up with these great ideas all on our own without thinking that it's a collective endeavor and that we don't have to try to do that. So I feel like this at least gives you kind of the basis or a foundation of a way to up-level your creativity and the collaboration. And one of the things I want you all to think about when you leave is how you're showing up, you personally, how you're showing up to creative collaboration. So are you a person who's been too afraid to share your ideas? Are you a person who's keeping all of your great ideas to yourself? Are you a person who maybe not, who knows, that is actually, over talking and muting each other by sharing your ideas? But just know that it starts with you, right? That collaboration flourishes where there's a willingness to embrace new practices and thinking. And so you've gotten some here. Hopefully you'll be able to use them so that you can co-create to make better things, so what we're all shooting for, but also to make things better and to do it together. And that, everybody, is it. Thank you so much for coming to this session. I appreciate it. So if you want kind of some more tips, put it back on really quick. Sir, thank you. So more tips in my book, Banish Your Inner Critic. Go and look at my LinkedIn learning courses. And if you want to reach out and connect with me, those are all my informations. Again, thank you so much. And I ended on time. I'm so excited. Thank you.